Let's talk to the Phillies president of baseball operations. He's done a phenomenal job in his tenure running the Phils, Mr. Dave Dombrowski. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Good, Dave.
Doing great.
Dave, we always love having you on the show. Let me say right out of the gate, congratulations to you, your squad, your whole organization on both the playoffs and winning the division. It's quite an accomplishment.
Well, thank you very much. The group has done a good job. It's been shown we have a good club. They played well. It bounced back after a little bit of a downtime after the All-Star break, and we're excited and ready to go for the postseason.
Dave, to prepare for the postseason, what is the plan of attack for how the organization will address or attack the time off? Do you play a simulated game? Do you play multiple simulated games? Do you and Rob Thompson say, if we play them, guys, we're playing it hard? It's not like, hey, time out, we're taking 10 minutes off. Like, how do you address the time off to stay sharp?
Well, we're still discussing. We've had a lot of preliminary conversations on this, and then actually we talked a little bit yesterday, and we'll continue to do so. Because it's actually just happened since we just knew we were getting the bye and we were more focused on getting the bye. But the reality is that we will attack it hard. It's going to be very important to do so. But that's a long time off when you talk about 5 days in Major League Baseball, because we're a timing game and you're in a position where you want to make sure that your players are prepared to play. So my guess is, without 100%, and we'll continue to talk about this, is that we will probably take Monday off and then come back playing, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we'll be working out. Friday we have the normal workout before game. We will play a simulated game in there at some point. I don't know if we'll play one or two. We will play it hard. It is not going to be one of those where, okay, let's just go out there and go through the motions. It's important that we stay sharp and focused. And I think that's one of the important parts, is that you just can't lay back and just think everything's going to be okay. You have to continue to press hard and to push it. We've done a lot of work and study on that. I've been involved in a couple of layoffs myself during World Series times that you always are exploring how to do it better. And we're in a position where our pitchers need to work. We're going to have to get some of them some work because they're going to be off for an extended time period. So they're going to have to go out there and throw hard, maybe not 7 innings, but they're going to have to go out there and throw hard. We'll also put an emphasis on running fundamentals, doing all of our drills. So we do all our PFPs and get all of those things prepared. So we're what we feel 100% sharp, ready to go for Saturday.
Dave, what's weighed more heavily in the decision on the starting pitchers, the second starter? Is it Nola's wealth of experience in the postseason or Sanchez's stellar home record?
They're both considerations. They're great considerations. It'll probably be too late to determine, although I'm not saying you can't take a turn on it, who we play, because maybe somebody faces up better, matches up better versus a lefty versus a righty. Because the reality is, if you play 5 games the way the series is set up, the person who pitches game 1 or game 2 can pitch game 5 if you play 5 games. And for us, that's an obvious choice in that Wheeler would be the guy going 1 and go 5. And then so those will be decisions that we still need to make. But they're both factors. It is important that Sanchez has pitched so great at home. It's not that we don't think he can pitch well on the road, but he has shown the ability to do that, and that'll be a strong consideration for us when we make the final decision.
So, sorry, John, go ahead.
So that process, when you and Rob Thompson sort of collaborate about the things like who gets the start and how you stack the pitching, how does that process work, and is that process different in the postseason than it was in the regular season?
Well, normally, during the regular season, Rob Thompson, along with Caleb and our pitching coach, Caleb Cotham, and then can get input from Brian Kaplan, our assistant pitching coach, really, they set the rotation. They determine how guys are going. We also, though, of course, include trainers at times. Maybe somebody needs an additional day off here or there, so that comes into play. And usually the only time that I usually get involved in setting a particular rotation on who we're playing, because it's pretty obvious you go through the same 5 guys, is if somebody's coming back to pitch, often an injured list, where do we insert this guy? Do we need a 6th starter at some point here to try to give somebody a break at a particular time? But the reality is that that's their job, and they end up doing that during the postseason. Still very similar. But we sit down much more ourselves as a group. But ultimately, it'll be Rob Thompson's decision on who we are going to start a particular day. We get involved. We get our analytical people involved at times to try to provide certain information if there's anything that we missed. Sam Fold, of course, is very involved, our general manager. So we all sit down and make the best decision possible. But ultimately, I mean, it'll be Rob saying, yeah, I think this is the way I'd prefer to go. And that's the way we'll go unless there's something that is of major, major concern. And, of course, something else could crop up. You never know what could take place. You hope people stay healthy at a particular time. You hope somebody doesn't come up sore. You hope somebody doesn't need an extra day of rest. But all of those things come into consideration, and ultimately you then make the decision.
Dave Dombrowski with us here. Dave, so much has gone so well this year, but I think the biggest negative obviously has been Taiwan. You may lose home field advantage because of it/other fifth starters, just basically not having an effective one, since Turnbull at the start of the season. Do you regret not making a move at the trade deadline to bolster home field advantage possibilities?
Well, yeah. I mean, ideally, if you have hindsight on it, you would say, oh, gosh, I wish we'd have a chance to do something. And, of course, once you get past July 31st, you can't do anything. This year was July 30th. But the reality is that when you look at, and we talked about it ourselves, we had Taiwan coming back, and we thought he would be fine. We thought he would pitch much better. We had Tyler Phillips, who was throwing very well for us at that time, and then faltered after it. And then we had Spencer Turnbull coming back that we thought would be ready to go into rotation at the end of August. So we had all three of those possibilities. And the reality when we were sitting there was saying, well, if we get a guy, where do we even put him at this point? Because Phillips was throwing so well. And we got Walker coming back in 10 days. So at that point, we decided not to do it. The cost for the guys out there were extremely high, as you could see. But for us, we just felt, well, we still can win our division. We think we're in a position with the guys that we have. And I think that, I mean, ideally, you always want to win every game that you possibly play. But I'm not saying that you wouldn't want to be the top seed because always home field advantage. But for us, really, the biggest concern was trying to get a bye in the first round where we can set things up the way we would like to. I mean, if we finish 1 or 2, I don't think that you'd find a statistical the favorite one way or the other in that a lot of clubs win as many games on the road as they do at home during the postseason. So for us, I think it's been much more of an importance to try to get one of those. Again, you'd like to win every game, but the reality is that when you get to the postseason, all 6 clubs that are going to be in there in our league are good clubs. There's going to be a good club that misses the playoffs. So, no, I mean, when you look back at it, if I had the hindsight, yeah, I wish I would have added somebody. We would have won some more, I think a few more games. But really, at the time period, that's all you have. You have the snapshot at that time.
Dave, let's talk about the health
of the team. I'm
sorry. Dave, the health of the team entering October here. So a couple really key players. JT as a catcher, obviously catchers always get banged up. Bryce with his elbow. Trey with his hamstring, which at times it seemed when he came back, he was hesitant to fully sprint all out in recent months, at times. Do you feel the guys are healthy enough to really cut it loose in October?
Oh, yes. I don't think there'll be any question about that. Trey is for sure healthy. Trey, a lot of times, will conserve himself for this particular time, but he's 100% ready to go. JT feels fine. I mean, of course, as a catcher, you're going to be beat up at anybody, and as any player is, but he's ready to go back there and catch all the time. And Bryce's elbow continues to get better. It bothers him at certain times when he swings and extends it, but I think with some additional days of not playing and swinging at that particular time in games, that he'll be, I can't say 100%, but nothing to phase him from not going out there and playing 100% and performing.
And, Dave, how do we keep the bats hot this postseason using last year as experience?
Well, that is always it's a tough time thing. I mean, you work as hard as you can. I will guarantee our guys are out there just as every club is. You're doing everything you possibly can. You're swinging against your machine. You're dialing up the machine. You're seeing breaking balls. We're going to have guys come up, and we'll have our own pitchers throw to us. We'll also be in a position we're bringing what we call stay hot camp people from our minor leagues. Will come up and throw hard. It's a situation that you can see, though, you're facing a lot of good pitchers at this time of year. I think no matter when anybody faces Zach Wheeler, the right time you ask them that, say, well, you hope you perform as well because he can shut down anybody even when you're at 100% going. So that's what you're striving to do, and we'll do everything we can. But you're in a position where it's a timing game. I think our guys will work hard towards getting it accomplished, but we've got to go out and do it because you can say everything that you possibly want to, but we have to go out there and do it.
Getting ready for yet another October. Dave Dombrowski has been living in the postseason so many years of his career with us here again on WIP. So, Dave, let's talk about some of the options in the lineup for the next few weeks. Second base, left-handed starting pitcher. Should fans expect Bryson Stott to get that start, which he got last year, or Edmundo Sosa to get that start, which he's gotten so often this year?
Yeah, I don't even think can answer that question at this point. I think a little bit will be dependent upon the matchup of the left-handed pitcher that you possibly have. We can feel comfortable with either one of them. I mean, Stott, he can contribute. He can hit left-handers, although he hasn't hit them quite as well this year, but he can hit left-handed pitchers. He's also an outstanding defensive second baseman, which you can't look past. And Sosa's a really good player, too. So I think it depends upon the matchup for us at that particular time. And I think that's what will make the final determining factor. And I don't even think Rob Thompson right now, if he sat down and say, what are you going to do? He'd say, well, who's pitching against us, and let's take it from there.
You know, Dave, I'm sure it may be similar in the left field, center field combo based on the pitcher, but let's just broad stroke this if possible. So you've got three players essentially for two positions. I mean, for the most part, Austin Hayes, Johan Rojas, and Brandon Marsh. I mean, it seemed like Austin Hayes was acquired to be an everyday player. He obviously struggled to a large extent and got hurt. So let's just start with this. Is he an everyday player? And if not, how do you balance the Rojas and Marsh thing, where Marsh obviously struggles against lefties, and Rojas, frankly, has struggled against both lefties and righties this year? How do you balance all that?
Well, again, I think you take it on a game-by-game basis. You see who you think gives you the best chance to match up and play and win that game. I mean, you're correct when you say Rojas has struggled from, offensively, but there are things that he can do defensively. People, for whatever reason, don't talk much about defense. And sometimes in the postseason, defense can even be more important because, when you're facing top pitchers, you can have quality hitters and you still don't put up a lot of runs. So you have to weigh what gives you that advantage at that particular times. And his value in offensive play, we saw the other day, he bunted a couple times, he hit and ran. He steals a base for you. So you weigh those positives with the defense he plays, and then I think you look up at the matchups and how you view it versus a lefty or righty. We did acquire Austin. We think he can be an everyday player. Hasn't hit as well versus right-handers. He's hardly even played for us at times. But the other thing when we acquired him, we said, well, we're not sure how this will be, but we know that he can really mash left-handed pitchers, which we felt would be extremely important for us if we got to the postseason. So, again, you kind of determine all those things. Are you a little bit better with the defense that you have with Rojas in center and Marsh in left on a particular day versus being in a position where you play, okay, Hayes in left and Marsh in center? You might give a little bit. And Marsh has hit, if you look over the last month, 6 weeks, has hit left-handed pitching better. So those will all be things. And at this time, I don't think you can make a final determination. It'll be very dependent upon who you play and what you think is your best chance to win.
Dave, I remember hearing Jerry West talk one time, and obviously after his playing days, one of the great executives ever in basketball history. I heard him talk one time about he would get so nervous in the postseason, he would leave the Staples Center. He couldn't take it. He'd get in his car and drive. I'm curious, from your perspective, at this time of the year, when to a large extent your work is largely done, you have fielded the team. It's their job to go out there and perform. It's Rob Thompson's job to make the right, pitching changes at the right moments. Do you get more nervous at this time of the year or excited?
Well, can I answer the combination of the two? So it really is the way it is. I mean, I think during a lot of games during the season, maybe not quite as much, but you get that little churn in your stomach, and that's the reality of it. Nothing major, but it's just the competitive nature of trying to win and you're a little bit nervous at that point, realizing you can't do anything about it. But you're also very excited. So to me, I look forward to the games. I mean, you're right, there's not much anything I can do during the games, but not during the regular season either can you do anything. So it's really that kind of combination. You look forward to it a great deal, and I understand if anybody, Jerry West is one of the greatest players / executives, and I respect what he did, but I don't see myself leaving the ballpark, for example. I'm going to stay there and watch the games, and that's what I enjoy doing. And it takes the ups and the downs. I think the difference is, as you know, is that every game is so much more significant. Yeah. Because during the regular season, you don't ever like to lose, but you know you're going to lose games. But during the postseason, every loss and every win is all much more because they're all short series.
Dave, can Ranger Suarez pitch the postseason like he pitched to start the year?
I think he can, but we still have to see it, right? I mean, I'm anxious to see his start today. He did throw the ball harder the last time out, which I think is really important for him. He was still dealing with, I can't say his back has been bothering him because I don't think it has been, but having had that before, I think he got into a little bit of cautious nature with his delivery and maybe not going through it as much as he should. Last time out, it was better. Didn't command his pitches quite as well, but I think it's in there. I think a couple of years ago, if you look back too, he had struggled a little bit in September and then went into the postseason and pitched just great. So I think he can. Now, will he? We'll wait and we'll see how it goes. But I do think he's capable of it. You know, he's not going to get nervous going out there as far as doing anything that's unusual. So he's in a position where he's confident. He's a good pitcher. He's got a pulse of what to do and how to be successful. And so, yes, I do think he can pitch very well for us in the month of October.
Dave Dombrowski getting ready for October, which, again, starts soon. I mean, the Phillies will play their first playoff game in 8 days. It'll be a Saturday game 1 in the NLDS, opponent to be determined. You know, Dave, I'm curious, if you and Rob Thompson have talked, and if you have, frankly, specifically talked to him about perhaps approaching things different this October. I mean, you know, he's done such a great job in so many instances, but last year I thought he relied, and I think many of us thought he relied too much on players that were struggling in October, namely Kimbrel and Rojas. You know, this is obviously the town where a World Series was lost because Fregosi went back to Mitch when we all knew Mitch was struggling. Do you think that he will be quicker this October to sit a player who is struggling to try to maximize your chances to win, even if that's a player that gave you a lot in a regular season?
Well, I think it depends upon who the player is when you talk about that. And I think we talk all the time. Topper says, well, sometimes you look back and you gain experience from when you look back in your past and, okay, the experience that you gain, how you would do things. But, I mean, let's just take, for example, that one of our big guys, and you talk about Schwarber, Turner, Harper leading off the game and then go from there. They're struggling. They have a bad couple of days. I don't think he's going to make many changes with those guys.
Sure.
You talk about a Rojas, he very well may, based upon the situation. And the other thing you have is you have more choices. Like, I mean, in this situation here, I think Hayes and Marsh you can argue one way or the other if you wanted to, but in Rojas's case, they're good alternatives. I think our bullpen is very deep. It's deeper than it was last year. He used Kimbrel, and then he came back with it, and unfortunately Craig didn't have a good couple of days. But I think it's a situation where I think he learns from that, and he gains experience from that, and will be much more proactive maybe in some. But, again, every circumstance is different in every situation. And one thing that sometimes you never know unless you're in the clubhouse and sitting there is, well, is the guy tender that particular day? Can he use that guy? Well, we're not going to publicly come out and say, oh, such and such is tender, because you don't want to tip your hand to the other club and know that you're eliminated somebody. So sometimes your hand gets forced. Is this guy, maybe his knee doesn't feel quite great today, so I'm going to really still play that guy because I'm not really confident that guy's going to be able to cover the ground in left field, let's say, but we're not going to publicly say those things. So a lot of times decisions that people wonder why you're making them, the manager covers situations, and Rob Thompson does that very well because he's not looking to tip his cap to the other team.
Dave, couple final things, and again, Dave Dombrowski with us here. Dave, few final things. The terrific bullpen you just referenced and deep bullpen, is there a chance because of how much quality you have in that pen that maybe you get an extra position player on the roster this year? I mean, there's 5-6 different relievers you can trust, and maybe that helps get Cody Clemens and Weston Wilson both on the playoff roster. Is that a possibility?
It's a possibility. We still have to make those final decisions and discussions. I would think the first round we would go with 12 and 14, although we haven't 100% solidified that. But then the second round, the part you always run into difficulty when you plan it, and people forget this, is even though it looks obvious that, okay, well, you can get by with 12, in the postseason, you can run into long games. Your games can be 17 innings. And so you have to protect yourself in that case, because compared to the regular season, you're putting the runner on second base, the ghost runner, and you're going from there. Well, we don't have that in the postseason, so you always have to be in the back of your mind that what happens if you get into a long game, how do you cover it? And the second time, even though you look at the schedule, you might say, well, what happens if we get rain and we're playing 4 games in a row? Do 12 pitchers suffice for us? And those are the type of discussions that also go into play that are beyond just, okay, you have these 12 pitchers, you feel very good about them, but what happens if these circumstances take place? Of course, you have to have the pitchers to be able to do the job, too.
No question. Dave, let's wrap on this one. How many more years you want to do this? I mean, let me frame it this way. Is there a scenario that if you win the World Series, this is it for you? I mean, that's what happened with Pat Gillick. Wins the championship in 2008, retires. Now, he ultimately unretired for, some involvement for some stretches. But could this be your last year?
Oh, no, I don't believe that's the case. I don't know how many more years I'll do it. I have 3 more years on my contract, which I plan to fulfill. I enjoy what I'm doing. I'm very fortunate to work with a great organization, great ownership with John Middleton. And so I don't know how long I'll do it, but I can say that if we win a world championship, and I hope we do, that I'll be back in spring training in 2025 doing my job.
Well, I'll tell you this.
Sounds good to me.
I think the city of Philadelphia would take that combination.
We love it.
Yeah.
A championship, and Dave Dombrowski stays running the show. Hey, Dave, again, congratulations on obviously what's been a magnificent regular season. We look forward and anxious to see what will happen in October. The city is really excited. Also a little nervous for obvious reasons, but really excited for Red October, and best of luck to your club. Dave, thanks for being a huge part of the show today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Talk to you guys soon.
You got it. All right, there he is, Dave Dombrowski.